I'm used to saying that when there's a bunch of people out in the congregation. It's kind of different when you're talking to a camera, and I know everyone's sitting down at home as well. So today we have the wonderful story of the resurrection appearance of Jesus on the road to Emmaus. This is not in our usual pattern of readings using the 1928 prayer book, so I chose to use it today in place of what we would normally read for the gospel, because it's such a great story, an illustration of one of the appearances of Jesus after his death and resurrection. So these two disciples are walking to Emmaus, having no idea that Jesus is risen from the dead. Even though they had had these reports from the women, they still weren't sure of what's going on. And Jesus appears. Now you need to know that when he appears to them, supernaturally their eyes are closed to his true appearance and who he really is. So we don't know what he looked like to them, just a common Jewish traveler, and so that's how they took him. And when he approached them, he said, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And you could tell they were very sad, and in the NIV it says they were downcast. So their countenance, it was just obvious that they were very upset about everything that had happened. You and I both can tell that when we see people who are in distress, family members or friends that we know really well. When they're sad, you can tell. And Jesus, being the Son of God, of course, he knew right away that they were in this state. So, you and I, right now, in our lives, in this time, many of us are struggling with the very similar emotions that those two disciples had on that road. We're stuck at home for the most part. How can we spend our time? What on earth is going on? We're on the one hand, we're sad and lonely, but on the other hand, we're afraid, and fear is gripping us because if we step outside and go somewhere, we might catch this virus. And many of us are vulnerable to that particular virus, and it may do us great harm or even kill us. And so we're afraid. And fear is natural in the sense that it protects us from things. But on the other hand, Satan can use fear to hurt us in our spiritual lives and in our entire life. And I think Satan's using this time to plant fear into many of our hearts when we need to instead have faith in Christ, that he's walking with us just like he walked with those disciples on that road so many years ago. So, he asks them what's going on, and they tell him about everything that had happened up to that point. And you and I need to do the same thing. We're in the middle of some very difficult times, personally, and as a country, and as a world. And we need to take all these things to Jesus. We need to tell him about it. He's with us. He's walking beside us. And he wants to hear from us. Turn to him in prayer. He's ready to listen. He's by your side. He wants to hear from you. And so they explain everything to him. And you might have seen me smile as I was reading the gospel when he said that them, he goes up to them and they're upset. And he said, and they said, all these things have gone on, and he says, what things? He's Jesus. He's the one that went through it. He knew everything that had happened. And yet he's saying, what things to these two disciples? I just thought that was funny. And that's why I smiled at that point. So they tell him everything. And then Jesus, on the one hand, he kind of disciplines them a little bit, if you will. He says, oh, you foolish of heart. And in other words, they didn't see the truth of what was happening. They didn't remember all the things that he had told them leading up to his death and resurrection. He had told them over and over again, this is what's going to happen to me when we get to Jerusalem. I'm going to be killed, and then I will rise again. But they'd forgotten all of that in the midst of the chaos of the weekend, and in their fear and in their sadness. And you and I do the same thing, don't we? We forget to take it to Jesus, that He's at the center of our lives and ready to hear us. So He explains to them everything that was in the Scriptures about Himself. And I don't know about you, but I really wish those two disciples had a tape recorder and would have turned it on and recorded everything that Jesus explained from the Old Testament about Himself as the Messiah. That would have been incredible to have that tape. Now, in their day, they had to tell each other the stories and then repeat them. And so when they got back, they told this story to the other disciples, to the apostles, and said, we saw Jesus. And it's possible, we don't know for sure, it's not recorded in the Scriptures, but it's certainly possible those two disciples then told the apostles, this is what He said to us about Himself from the Old Testament. Because, particularly Matthew, but the other Gospels as well, have very many instances of where they've quoted the Old Testament Scriptures about Jesus. They could have heard it from these two disciples and then included it in their Gospels because it came straight from His mouth. Well, you and I, in the same way, we need to turn to the Scriptures so that Jesus can teach us from those Scriptures. And He can comfort us and guide us and direct us, sometimes convict us, teach us, and help us through our day. So not only do we need to go to Him in prayer and lay all our concerns before Him and allow Him to speak to us directly in prayer, but go to His Word. And in the Word, you will hear from God what the Christian life needs to be. It'll speak to those things that are going on in your life in remarkable ways. But if you don't open it, it's not going to happen. And then finally, we get to the last part of this whole story where they all go together and they're going to have dinner together. And for whatever reason, they allow Jesus to break the bread. And He did. And He gave thanks to God for the bread. And then their eyes were supernaturally opened, and they saw Jesus for who He was. The disguise, if you will, fell away, and there He is. And you can imagine the surprise and on their faces when they saw Him. And then He vanishes and leaves. He's the risen Lord. He can come and go as He chooses. And they said, weren't our hearts burning on the road when He opened the Scriptures to us? And of course, that's what happens when we open the Scriptures. Sometimes God will burn our hearts with what's in God's holy word. So Jesus leaves, and then they go back and report all this to the apostles. And then they hear that He had also appeared to Simon Peter. So this incredible story of the road to Emmaus with these two disciples can give us several things that can help us right now in the middle of what we're going through. So when you're afraid, when you're tired, when you're lonely, when you're sad, when you're anxious, fall to your knees. Take it to Jesus. And then every day spend time in His Word and allow God's Word to speak to your heart, to teach you and to encourage you, to help you through your day. Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank You and praise You for this day, this chance that we can look at Your Word and this story of the road to Emmaus. I pray, Father, that each one of us would hear in it those things that we need to hear today.